The Swampscott School Committee regular session meeting agenda, Wednesday, April 10th, 2019. For everybody who can, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before we go any further, I just want to take a moment to observe a moment of silence in honor of Max Carpo. There is going to be a celebration of his life on Saturday at 3 o'clock here at the high school. All are encouraged to attend, as well as there's a pretty incredible GoFundMe page that is setting up for a scholarship in his name. From what I've seen, they started out looking for $10,000 and now they're up to just about $75,000. And it was impressive to see it because there's so many gifts that are small gifts, $5, $10, just from his peers and the students, and it's a pretty incredible community. So I just wanted to point out that there are good things happening too. The superintendent is not with us tonight, nor is Martha, and nor are our two representatives from the high school. So we'll just dive in. I know we have a lot of reports. So why don't we start first? Are you here for? Do we have public comment? No, just here to.
Lisa's here.
Oh, good. Okay. I do that. So we'll go into community announcements. Does anybody in particular want to start? Ted? No? Suzanne?
Kudos to the drama club. Good charity. Pretty unbelievable. Every year you think, wow, how can they ever top these students? And then every year it's just great. So
That dance number was pretty cool.
they're awesome. It's unbelievable, the talent.
So I was just going to mention that we taped a candidate forum yesterday. Amy and I are up for re-election for school committee, as well as a challenger, Keiko Zoll, and we did this here at the high school with the TV production class. And as always, never fail to be amazed by what they do in that TV studio and with that class. And it was a little extra special because my daughter's in that class and she was helping to run the show. So I just can't thank Joe Dulett and those kids enough. They just do an amazing job. That's it.
And our interview is on.
Oh, sorry, yes, yeah.
Go ahead.
It's up on YouTube.
It's on YouTube on the
school
Swampscott
channel?
Education channel.
Yes.
Was it a debate? I missed it. I thought it was the 28th.
There's a live one, the 25th,
Oh,
here.
okay.
This one was sponsored by the item, the daily item.
Okay.
And originally it was supposed to be live, but there were conflicts in schedules, so it was, the editor, Thor Jurgensen, posed some questions to each of us, and
Oh,
And we did it on
and we
tape.
did it on tape.
Oh,
So there's that. Anything to announce?
I feel like we were just here last week, so no.
Okay.
Got nothing.
Nothing? Okay.
Okay.
So we will move into the superintendent section, and I'll invite Ms. Mackey up to start in with a technology update. Should we move?
Probably. Joe, can you guys see the board okay? Are you on the screen?
But we're not going to see it here, right?
You will.
So
we'll
we're
move.
going to, we'll move then.
Great.
So we're here to share the technology update, what's been happening in the world of technology in Swampscott Public Schools for the 2018-19 school year. With me, I have the technology team. Sue Comparato, our digital learning specialist at Swampscott High School, Natalie Poverchuk, our digital learning specialist at Swampscott Middle School, Katie Porter Roberts, our elementary digital learning specialist, and then we have Vlad, everyone knows Vlad, over here in the corner, and Stephen Silbert with us. So we're all going to talk for a little bit about the different things that have been happening in the school this year. So I don't want to read to everyone, but one of the things that we do when we frame what we're doing for the year is we go back to what's our focus and our purpose. And one of the things that we did 3 years ago was we mapped out how do we choose technology and what are the things that we're thinking about when we're moving the district forward. And it's a very collaborative process with our teachers, our students, the administration, obviously the superintendent, and a lot of research. We reach out to other school districts, we visit, and all of these things that we do, we're learning from others. We want to make sure that all of our teachers are armed with what they need for the collaborative learning environment and robust digital environments. So that's what we do. Now, when we look at that, we think about our infrastructure first, because we can't do anything without a strong infrastructure. So we've been working on our infrastructure for the past 3 years, so we'll talk about that. And then we think about what do the educators need, and then what do the students need. And we talk about that at each different level. So we'll start with the district. So one of the big things this year, and it started 2 years ago, is that the tech team is consumed with MCAS, mostly because we've moved from paper-based to computer-based, and some people are still not confident in their skills, so the technology team took that on a couple years ago. And these are just the different things that we do. So between March and June, we are extremely busy every day in the school, setting up, supporting the principals, supporting all of the teachers and students. And we start by learning all the materials, and then we do the presentations and train the trainer model. So this year we've been able to let the middle school and elementary sort of off on their own. They've done an amazing job, and we're there for support, and we're really focusing on the high school because it's their first year with computer-based MCAS. So another thing is, because we have this model, and it seems to be pretty successful, and we've developed a lot of materials, the DESE reached out to us and asked us to present with them this year. So one of the things that was really fun for Katie and I was that we presented for the Department of Education 4 times. And if you go up to this little link here, you can see that we are right here. Hey. All of our materials for Swampscott Public Schools are on the DESE website. So that was really neat to be able to present to every single principal and everyone who's in the Commonwealth. So that was something that we did and we enjoyed doing. So something else that we've been working on this year is we had the website project, and one of the things about our website is it's very complex, and we want to make sure that it's accessible to all. We had a lot of people that wanted to edit the site or have their own pages. So we've been moving them to Google Sites and teaching about accessibility. We've been doing small groups at a time, so I spend a lot of time with the PTO, PTA, PTF groups. So we have a couple sample sites that they made after I worked with them. These are much better than a single page, and this also means that the 3 people in the district who are trained to have access to our school website don't have to manage the updates, so it was really helpful for us. It also protects our website, because when you have lots of people with passwords and access to something, then if it got loose, we wouldn't want our website to be hacked, so we take great pride in that. So here's one of the websites how they look. So this is the school building committee website, and it has all the up-to-date information. So I spent some time with Suzanne Wright on that, and then she took it over from there. So again, another train the trainer model. That's something that we do a lot of. And then when we unleash it to everyone and they get to use their own sites and update it, we're still editors, so any of us can help them if they come across a problem. So that's been really helpful. But these are some things that are a little time-consuming.
Glad?
Yeah, I can use it as well. For the past few years, we're using website. This is our technology portal. All staff members are supposed to report existing problems. This is a more effective way to handle because the whole team can watch this website and quickly respond. So we don't practice any emails or phone calls, only any technical problem, please report to the website. So this is some numbers. You can see on the right part, it's cumulative numbers. This is when we start this school year, August, and this is today. It's over 1,600 reported problem. Usually, we expect around 2,000 by the end of the school year. So compared to last year, we had cut in our staff and we lost one member, but we got kids, tech ninjas. This is really a huge help because they're available, I would say like limited amount of time, but it's a whole team and they can quickly solve some problems like Chromebooks because we have few people who can handle it, but now with the help of tech ninjas, we can really go forward and fix. Now, talk about infrastructure, what we had for the past year. We upgraded phone system. So literally, it's fully integrated telephone network. Every single place, every classroom has 4-digit extension. It's more convenient. Literally, you can just pick up this phone and let's say you want to dial headless school classroom, particular classroom you can directly dial without bypassing secretary's desk, just directly dial from any classroom to classroom. And another part, we have more advanced infrastructure for Wi-Fi access points. Currently, we have, like every other classroom has wireless access point. It's a district-wide. Anywhere in this building or middle school or any elementary school. At this moment, it's enough to handle MCAS. So we didn't really experience any problems. But for the future, there is a capacity factor. Let's say this classroom has 25 kids. And next door, they're going to use a mobile card. Like this classroom, let's say 25 computers, and another room will use the same number. So we're going to exceed capacity. And our future goal just to expand coverage and put access point in every room. So when every classroom has an access point, it shouldn't be any limitation. Because currently we have to schedule MCAS just considering number of access points. So we have map. We mapped every single building and we know which place needs some improvement in coverage.
Thank you, Bud.
Hold it till the end.
A lot of the stuff I work on is technical enough that I can't talk to people about it just because it's so technical. I'm our district Google certified administrator. Google gives us Chrome OS. That's what runs on all the thousands of Chromebooks that we have. Over 1,000 Chromebooks in the district now. And Chrome OS runs on all of them. That's the operating system that Google gives us. And one of the very cool things that's happened is as certain very old Macs, we have around 80 of them, cannot run modern Apple software. We put Chrome OS on them, and they are as useful as any Chromebook. Another thing, I got this really, really powerful server to put all the software on all our new MacBooks and all our new iPads. And what I found with it was that when we needed some server power for MCAS, it more than handled it. Running the Linux operating system, another new operating system for the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. So a few other things that the district's been working on, MassQ presentations. So we were very fortunate that we had 4 of our presentations selected. So we had a bunch of educators that submitted, and all of us actually were selected to present. So Mass Computer Using Educators is the largest technology conference in New England, and everyone in technology is there. So it was really neat for us all to be able to go, because when you get a presentation accepted, you get to go for free. And then we were able to bring some other people. This year we've pushed again, and we've submitted a few other presentations, so we're hoping for next fall. But it was really neat. We were the district that had the most presentations accepted, so very proud of our technology-loving educators. So you can see there's some teachers there that aren't on the tech team. That was a really big win for us, and we learned so much over those 2 days. And then with what we learn, we compile it into folders and presentations and share it out as resources. So if someone's saying, oh, I heard about this new technology, Flipgrid, I want to use it in my classroom, we can say, we have a presentation for that from MassQ. So it was really a cool thing. The other thing that we did was Tech Tuesdays and Thursdays in the fall. As the year went on, they sort of fizzled out. People are tired, but we're going to bring it back. And what we did is we offered after-school PD hours, but it wasn't professional development. It was a training for technology. So anyone who wanted to come and learn something, we'd send out what we were going to teach. So this was taking control of your Google Drive. We're going to do a summer technology day, and that will be anyone who wants to come in, and we're going to offer a couple different sessions. And then the other thing that we do is new teacher orientation and new hires, follow-ups all year long. So in the fall, I teach them with Natalie, Sue, and Katie when she gets back. She'll be ready to go. So we're spending a lot of time training. One of the neat things is that once we move the high school teachers to MacBook Airs, all of their Chromebooks went to ESPs, and this is the entire Swampscott High School faculty with Chromebooks and MacBook Airs in an MCAS training, and every single person had a device, and the paraprofessionals expressed how pleased they were that they were considered professionals and that they got a device because they work with their students in Google as well. So now they could be in a Google Classroom and helping a student with the doc that they shared or a presentation. So we were very fortunate to have that. And again, these are all things that we do. We're training during the year and rolling out this equipment. So here's a picture of district educators on a professional development day, and they're all able to work in any of the rooms in the building with their own devices and collaborating with their peers, having their lessons, all their resources with them, and that's a huge win for everyone. Some teachers also remark, like, grades are due tomorrow, and it's so nice to not have to be in the building till like 9 o'clock. You can go home, you can do things at home. They keep them during the summer. So if they want to work, they want to attend PD, it's lovely. They have that opportunity to do so. Sue?
Okay. I'm Sue Comparato. I am the digital learning specialist and business teacher at the high school. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's been going on at the high school this year. All of our teachers got MacBook Airs, which has made it incredible. As Ms. Matthew just told you, they are loving it. They're so happy being able to do grades from home. They keep them for the summer. They're collaborating a lot more because they're on the same platform except for me. We all also got wireless projectors in our room, which it has been amazing because the old projectors were all dying, and now we can wirelessly connect to the projector from the MacBook or the PC laptop, which is a game changer for us. this new Apple TV that you see, which is amazing, and I can't wait to come down and play with it, but I'm gonna have to use your MacBook. There's 2 new smart boards in the building, one in a chem lab, and where's the other one?
Special education classroom.
Which is wonderful. We could use more, but we're happy with what we have. The Fine Arts Department got Mac desktops, which they're using in their photo lab to do some really great work. And on a daily basis, I probably answer 15, 16 Aspen gradebook questions. And general Google support, anyone for students, for teachers who need help with Google Classroom, with a Google site. And I do provide a lot of support to guidance with GPAs and transcripts and scheduling stuff. So that's a lot of what we're doing. And this is a picture of a teacher. You can see she's standing in the back with her laptop projecting. So no cords, nothing. She's in the back so she can see what the students are seeing, and she can also keep an eye on them. And these are the tech ninjas, the kids we have. They go over to the senior center. It's a small group, but they're really good at what they do. They're fixing keys. They're doing whatever we ask them to do. They're just great kids, and they're doing a great job.
Something else that the Tech Ninjas have, this, I'm not going to play this, but they're starting a video series. And so Bradley, one of our Tech Ninjas, is teaching people in this YouTube video on how to reset your password in Google and Aspen. And we can't wait to push that out as well to parents. So if they want to learn how to do it, it's a quick video, and he has some fun animations. So he loved doing that, but that's one of the things that they're starting to do is look at where there's a need. So it's a great class, and we're really happy to have them to fill out our program here. So for high school, for students, there's a couple photos here of the editing labs in the TV studio and in the photography studio. So while we have mostly Chromebooks now, we still have PCs for our business department, and that's something that we'll talk about a little later. But the editing software for the Macs is incredible. We have the Adobe Creative Suite, but what we've been finding is a lot of students coming back from arts in college and saying how competent they were, because this is what you use when you go to school to become an artist, a graphic designer. And then we have students who went to business school, and they're saying, we have a business lab. So they learned that as well, and they're very proficient in the Google world, the Googleverse. So we're really giving them all the different platforms that they'll use at the next level, and we think that's important for their learning, because while everyone says they're high school kids, of course they'll pick up anything, they really don't, and they do need instruction around these items and the types of software that we're using. So these are just some of the things that we did. The art department did get a grant, and we helped supplement the grant, so they got 5 MacBook Airs, and we were able to supplement 5 more and flesh it out, and we've been helping to slowly upgrade the TV studio desktops because they were very, very old, as Mr. Doulette could attest. 10 years. 10 years old. All right, and now Natalie.
Some basic cart and lab data. So right now we have 12 Chromebook carts, which is amazing. We have 2 desktop labs. One of them is my lab in the computer room, and we have 1 MacBook Air cart. This includes, for this year, we have 2 new Chromebook carts, and there are so many days where every single device in the building is used all at the same time, and everything works pretty competently. It's really been amazing. And even now during MCAS, we have a couple free carts that people are using throughout the building, and we haven't had any issues with MCAS. We haven't had issues in the classroom, and people have been very respectful about how much time they're using since we have a limited amount of devices during the MCAS season. Another really nice thing that we have available to us is a software program called Go Guardian, and right now there's 25 middle school teachers using it. And Go Guardian is a program where the teacher can monitor what every student is doing on their Chromebooks, so they can be walking around the room with their MacBook and then pull up Go Guardian, see what every kid is doing, regardless of where they're sitting. So if they need to go and check in with somebody, if they're off track, they can go ahead and do that. Also, we have 2 people using Land School. Myself and Mr. Penniman in robotics use Land School, which is like a higher-powered version of Go Guardian, where not only can we observe what the kids are doing, but we can push what's on our screens to their screens. And we have a couple more capabilities that give us some more control over what the students are seeing. It's a great tool for teaching. It allows me to do some more finer details where it might be hard to see on the screen if the kids are looking at the smartboard. I can just push my screen to theirs, and they can just follow along while I'm teaching, which is really great. In the 6th grade that I teach, I do a full digital citizenship curriculum unit. And this has come to be after I met with Lori and Jason, because we've had a lot of issues over the past couple of years about social media and the way students present themselves online. So I've developed this unit which takes things from Brain Pop, from Common Sense Media Education, and I've tailored it to what the students need at this age level in our school. And they're learning, I'll show you some examples of some final products students have created, just things that help them be a better digital citizen, so that they're emulating what they do in real life online as well. It's important for them to realize that, things that they say and do on phones, on the internet, stay there, and it's going to affect them in high school and college and in their professional careers. I've also started a series called the Aspen Tip of the Week. There's so many aspects to Aspen, and teachers, they only have so much time to learn things. There's not a lot of time to sort of just jump in and try and figure out stuff on your own, and Aspen is really not a user-friendly program in some ways. I'm sure those of you as parents can attest, it's hard to find kids' grades even. So for teachers, there's so many more things that they can do that they just don't know about. So as I start getting people asking questions, I'll email out like just a how-to to do something, and if it applies to somebody, then they learn something from it. There's an increased variety of tech after-school programs, which is great. Mr. Penniman is now additionally teaching like a Beyond Scratch program. We both teach Scratch programming at the middle school level, and now he's helping kids who want to do something more than that, like a higher level programming, so they're going into Python. And we also have new projectors and smartboards in the building. We've been cycling those as those have been sort of dying out over the years. And we have new copy machines, which, everyone uses copy machines, but we use them for printing as well. So not just copying, but we print directly from our map books to the copy machines, which is a saving cost to the districts since they're not paying for the individual printer inks. Oh, actually, and here are a couple of the examples that the kids have made. So one of their final projects is they have to take a topic that we've discussed in class and create a product that other people can use to learn from. So on the left, we have our fishing, avoiding the hook. This is something, if you read the police blotter, you can see people falling for phishing scams all the time. So the kids are learning about not to fall for short links in their text messages, don't fall for other kinds of scams that might look real or they're emulating some kind of real site. They have to be smart about what they're looking and reading at and just don't blindly click on things. And then digital footprints, you can see on the right side, everything you do online is part of your digital footprint. And then the internet searching strategies, which is useful for any age, but it's great to see how kids are taking things from just this program in general and being able to apply them to all of their other classes. And another digital footprint. All right.
So at the elementary schools, we got a new Chromebook cart for each school and a new iPad cart for each school. And we actually were able to populate the iPads with a whole bunch of different apps. I went on Common Sense Media, I did a lot of vetting, I tried to balance it out with our curriculum, so ones that could go with math strategies and reading and writing, and found some that match up to the science and the new social studies. So all of those are on the iPads, and the teachers are really starting to use them a lot. It's pretty awesome. Stephen and I have been working over the past week to install Apple Classroom onto those iPads, which is sort of like the Go Guardian that Natalie was explaining. So teachers can have one of the iPads and be able to push out to the kids an app. So it opens up on every single student, and then they can view the screen of every student's iPad, so they can see what each individual kiddo is looking at. And then if they want to get everyone's attention, they can lock the screens, and it just locks down, and they can't do anything. So it's pretty awesome, especially when you're using with like the littles, like the kindergartens, like they really do need some guidance for like, how do I open this one? Where do you find that? Like, it's pretty great that now we have the ability that like a teacher can just send it out to them, like, this is the app that we're using. We put in some new copy machines at the elementary schools. Again, we're trying to replace those printers, which are just sucking money. And it has worked out so well, especially at Hadley School, which is 3 floors. Their copiers were on the 1st floor. So if you're a 4th grade teacher on the 3rd floor, like you are running to get your stuff copied in your prep period and then going back and down. So like this is really great. We're cycling in a few new smart boards and a few new projectors. Oh, I'm sorry, I can go back with me, thank you. These are 2 photos that I took at the elementary school. So on the left, you have some students who are working on a science project. It's a collaborative group. So it's a Google Slides presentation. This is a 3rd grade class. They're working 2 to 3 kids per group. They did research on climate change and weather. Not climate change, just climates and weather. They're putting together a slideshow, and then they presented it in front of the entire class. So I actually created a hyperlink document that they can go to with all of the research sites that they're using, and then they create it and design their own slides, and it is awesome. On the right-hand slide, I just happened to be in the hallway at this time. So on the right-hand side is a 1st grade classroom that has MacBook Airs that is returning them to the cart after using them. On the left-hand side is a 2nd grade classroom that's bringing Chromebooks to their class so they can use them to do this project. And a little bit further back in the hallway is a 2nd grade classroom returning Chromebooks that was using them to do Type to Learn. So like to stand in a hallway and see these devices moving and being utilized is so incredible. And they only use it for, half an hour, 45 minutes, but like it's an impactful time period of their day. I have gotten the pleasure this year to work with some of the tech ninjas at the high school. So I had a big problem with some of the student accounts for the new elementary programs that we were piloting this year. And so I actually brought it to the tech ninjas and I was like, we need to figure out how to navigate these spreadsheets because it is complex and it is not going through. And so this is our successful, we did it. We took a selfie as like we got our successful subscription to it.
So thank you to the small tech team that we have. Natalie, Sue, and Katie are also full-time teachers, so they get a small stipend to do all this work that they're doing in addition to teaching. And we're very fortunate to have Vlad, our network expert, and he is a Windows expert. And then Stephen is a Mac and Google expert and works very closely with student services. And we also have 2 Teacher of the Year in our staff here with Natalie and Katie. So we are small but mighty. So just to finish up, 2 final slides here just to talk about like overall, what did we do over the past 3 years? Because right now the tech committee's meeting again and we're looking at what's our next 3 years look like. So we just started meeting this spring and obviously everything depends on the support that we get from the town for capital because we had a good 10 years where things weren't being done in the district on a bigger scale. And for the past couple years, we've been cooking with fire, and we're really, really pleased with the progress that we've made and how far-reaching it is when you see the students and their projects and their learning, and so much more is happening with the teachers and their comfort levels that we're really becoming that 21st century learning environment that we always wanted to be, which has always been part of the district's mission. So just a few of the projects that we've done, the big ones, infrastructure, part 1 and 2. So we're upgrading our closets, our switches. We did the phone project. Next year, we're hoping to do the high school closets. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. The website, the transition to Google, the MacBook Airs K-12 from the 10 to 12-year-old Windows machines that they had, and just tied to their desks. The Chromebooks for paraprofessionals, all the carts and iPads, the projectors and smartboard replacements, the transition to computer-based MCAS, and then, of course, our support for all of our devices and all of the people in the school system. So it's really tough, and we are very fortunate to have a team that's so energetic and excited about it. So what's happening next for us? So just a brief look. These are the final remaining things on this 3-year outlook that we had of a plan of what we needed to do for all of our equipment and training. So replacing the smartboards, this will be year 2, and we're really focusing on the elementary and middle school to get all the old ones out. Smartboards have about a 5 to 6 year shelf life, and they're starting to fail at an alarming rate. The wireless projectors, we did them at the high school first. They work great, but the elementary middle school needs some infrastructure work before we can get them wireless. So that also means that we need to work with Tom Prentice, who's one of our custodians, helps us out by doing some of the wiring. And so we do that after school in small increments and during the summer. And there's only one Vlad and Steven to go around and a few tech ninjas in the summer. So when this stuff comes in, it's a ton of work all during the year. So the other things that we're doing are replacing our outdated computer labs. So Natalie's lab, she's got a 10-year-old Mac lab, replacing that because these Macs can no longer be updated, and that's when they would be cycled out to be cloud-ready Chrome boxes. The typing lab, we're done with typing at the high school. We're going into financial literacy, so we're moving to business laptops, and Sue teaches that, so we'll be getting that to support the business classes at the high school. And then a few more Chromebook carts because, again, we have calendars, so we have lots of data to show that they're being used all the time. So the more that we can get, the better, but we also need the support to be able to fix them. We're now looking into pick-resistant keyboards because the students love to pick off the search key. So the last thing would be the admin assistants. Desktops district-wide, if you've ever been in one of the schools, you've seen something that's very dusty and old. So they probably create the most things, too, when they're working in an office. So we need to support them. And the final thing is we'll be moving to cloud-based servers. We'll keep some servers like Steven's Baby. That server will stay for some of our pet projects, and then Vlad has another server that he's kept alive since like 1990. But when we go to cloud-based servers, for anyone saving to the My Documents, it just looks the same, but it saves someplace more secure than a server that could be infected with a virus, like Lynn. So we do have some plans for that. We're pretty happy with our contingency and, hoping that with the support from the town and managing our budget well, that we can continue to make improvements. So that's it. Thank you.
How do you want to take questions?
Whatever you want.
Back then.
I'm just going to switch it over.
That stuff you've done it 1,000 times.
Before we jump into questions, I do want to say, since we have you here tonight, Sue Comparato, how thrilled the school committee was when we learned with the program of studies about what was happening with the financial literacy program. And it's just, it seems like such a no-brainer, but at the same time, it's really impressive. So we're really thrilled to see that. Thank you.
We're really appreciative of your support, and we're looking forward to it.
Well, thank you. So, want to start in with questions?
Yeah, so, thank you. That was an excellent presentation and overview of what's going on. I had a question for Vlad on the screen where he had the amount of, was that tickets, kind of, like through the months? So you had an upward of almost like 1,100 in 1 month, is that right?
No, it's cumulative.
They were adding
okay.
up cumulative.
Oh, okay. I was.
How are you getting to all those tickets? Like, I didn't understand. I was like, this is crazy.
I had the same
Divide
question.
by, how many months?
Okay, I had the same question.
Okay, so I was like, you need more staff. What's going on with those tickets? So that was my question of like, how long does it take to close those? Okay, so that's not, okay, so we feel like I mean, it's amazing that the student body can help with those, but do you feel like you have enough staff to manage those? Whether they're cumulative or not, there was 500, I don't know, how many do you get in like a month then? Like on average?
If you divide 1,600 by like roughly, well, it's for the whole year. So I would say average 200 a month.
200 a month, and that's across all buildings,
Yes,
right, because it's the portal?
district-wide.
Okay.
I mean, the other thing that those don't show are the special projects that we're working on where something doesn't work right or it's an emergency and we rush to that and we don't write tickets for it. We're trying to get better with that. So I'd say we're probably up to more like 2,000 at this point. It is tough to manage. Some of them are small, so like level 1 service tickets where it's a password reset and that's a ticket, and that takes us a couple seconds to do. But everyone here on the team does tickets. The majority of tickets are done by Vlad and Steven. But the like basic Google things and Aspen stuff is done by Chris James, who's the data specialist for the district. So we do have, she does a lot of things that we might not have time for, and then Sue, Natalie, and Katie help out with a lot of that as well, so.
And the ninjas have, can't do any of that stuff?
We have the ninjas do what they can, but it's a class, and they help out the senior center as well, and so they manage the Chrome fleet, like repairs and things, and trying to do resets, working with Steven to learn about Cloud Ready, any projects like that where it might take some time, and they also will be this summer like working to clean all the devices and push them back into carts and look at them and see which ones need service and double check our inventories, helping Vlad install projectors, access points, smart boards. So they're really good.
Is it a year-long class?
It's a quarter-based.
So is it getting more popular? Like, are more kids signing up for it, or?
We're very selective,
Oh.
but I think we have a new one this quarter. So we're at 6 right now, and 2 are graduating. So we're hoping. I found an 8th grader during MCAS.
It sounds like some middle schoolers might be coming up if they're doing
Yeah.
more programming and more.
We did
there's
find one during
more
MCAS
tech.
that I was like, so, do you want to be in my class?
Right.
That's
My other question was for Katie, and I think she kind of answered it, but you were saying, so I'm just like concerned a little bit about, what is the amount of screen time, would you say, that the kids are experiencing at the elementary level between the iPads now? You said it was probably 30 or 45 minutes. Is that just like, because I'm assuming they're using them more than that with the teachers during the day, or is this just one class?
No, I would say it's probably 30 to 45 minutes per class, per day, max. So like, they have the same teacher for the whole day, so they'll take out a cart for, 30 minutes or so, and they'll do an activity with them on that cart, but they then might not have that cart again for another couple of days. So it's not like they're on it for 2 hours every single day. We don't have enough carts for that to even happen, even with the iPad carts. So maybe half an hour, maybe an hour, but it's probably like every 2 or 3 days that happens.
Gotcha.
And then if they have a technology week, they would be using it for about half the time in that technology week. So that would be another maybe 20 minutes that they might be using it in technology. But in terms of their regular classroom, they're not using it more than an hour every 3 days or so.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think that it's something that you have now, but I'm wondering, is it possible at all to track the number of man-hours that your tech ninjas provide? And I have the same question as it relates to the man-hours that are needed to run MCAS, and the man-hours needed to take care of like non-district websites, whether it's the school building committee or the PTAs, where you're using your services that obviously benefit the whole district, but are clearly not.
I mean, we could track the hours of the tech ninjas. As far as the website piece, we're training people to take them on their own. So right now, like, I think Suzanne asked me a question once since she's been trained, and it's typical that
The training was so good.
the group send their strongest,
Yeah.
and then they come and they teach everyone else. And once in a while, we still have a lot of websites in development, but even internally, like I've been working with Metco to have a more robust website. So LaToya and I have met, and she's been trained, so she's working on her site, food services. I'm working with the nurses. So there's a lot of those where they're internal. But I think the community aspect is really important with the senior center and with our parent-teacher groups, that you see that the whole community sees that we're all working together. And so as far as ours, I mean,
I asked the question not so much, as a way to justify it, but as a way perhaps to get more service, more resources, and.
I mean, we
maybe
will
different
need another
platforms.
person in
Yeah.
technology for sure, but we've had so many budget cuts where we're losing teachers
yeah.
that we can't in good conscience say, we need someone to sit. I mean, there will be a slow week during the year where we're just sort of like, what else can we do and move? But most of the time we're busy, where, it's a full job where we're here early and stay late and do things from home. So eventually we will, but I can't see it right now. I think after we get through next year, but if we keep with the kids, where if we grow this program, it's a good way. And they're learning so many skills. When they go to college,
No, that's amazing.
the help desk programs at college pay money.
Yeah.
And you can't get one of those jobs unless you have experience. So we're providing that for the tech-savvy students. So we will need someone. It was tough to cut someone, but every department took a cut. And so we have a person, but we made up for it with the tech ninjas. So once that program is outpaced by the amount of equipment and equipment's lifespans, then we'll have to figure it out. But I think right now we're hanging in there.
Okay. I also had a question for Ms. Poverchuk for the digital citizenship that's in the 6th grade. Do you think that there's value to having, I mean, I know just because of what my kids have learned here, that it encompasses more than just a single class. But I guess, you know, I wonder, hearing from Mr. Kalishman about all of the digital citizenship problems that he struggles with, you know, is there, do we need more? Yeah,
So,
yeah, and earlier on was good.
I know that Mr. Kalishman and Ms. Seymour have met with each grade, and they've met a couple of times with the younger grades as they're seeing problems come up. ADL has also come down, and because some of these are not just maybe digital problems. I mean, it's more systemic problems that just go into their digital lives because they're so intertwined with each other. And also the librarian, Ms. Moltz, she also covers some of these aspects as well. Some of them more like websites that, you know, don't provide always accurate information. And then I think in their reading classes in 6th grade, they also cover things regarding plagiarism and some kind of research strategies. But I don't know where else you can fit like a broader thing about just how to act online. I think it just more has to be intertwined with little things all over the place. So we are doing that already with a couple of presentations that Mr. Kalishman and Ms. Seymour have done throughout the year. ADL going down to 6th grade, which I don't think we've really done in the past. It's mostly been 7th and 8th grade. And then myself and Ms. Moltz. So we're building up a stronger program where they're seeing these kinds of things in multiple areas. And overall, it just has to be, the kids have to just start, sometimes they have to learn by failing a little bit too. And then they learn from consequences, and that's how you learn sometimes as well.
What's the policy for the middle school and their phones? Like, I know in the high school, I know they tried to take them away and put them in those things when you walk in the class. I don't even know if you still do that anymore, but.
Middle school students are not allowed to have their phones.
At all.
They're in
To
their
stay
lockers.
They're in their lockers.
Yeah, they're confiscated if they're found on the student. There might be a case or two where they're used for class, maybe they need a photo from it, but primarily they're not used in class.
I know there was a big confiscation recently where parents had to go in and pick up the phones.
Yeah, I just, you know, I know.
Well, the April Fool's thing.
People came down hard on that for a little bit, and then it was relaxed again.
Sorry,
I was
that's
just
not-
wondering.
But I think you make a really good point about it having to be woven into all the classes and
Oh,
all
yeah,
the
like
aspects of
across
learning.
disciplines, across classes,
Right,
everything.
right. It's
What, I have a question about Go Guardian.
Right before that, though, I guess also at the elementary level, the teachers for technology and library media, they also cover digital citizenship. So they're getting some aspects of that in the elementary level, and then they're building up and they're receiving it in middle school. So,
Right.
yeah. So over the course of several years, they're going to be hearing this from multiple places.
Okay.
Every text they send on their phone, I hope you guys go over that it's there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and
Every picture.
I created like a form for the kids to fill out after the course is over, just, you know, which topic did they like the best. We go over 8 different topics, and some of them are kind of hard hitting. Like, it's, you know, you have to be careful about your identity that you present online, but also be careful about who you talk to, because you don't know who they are either. And the kind of language that you use with other people online too. So we get into some topics where maybe not every kid has been exposed to it, but maybe sort of maybe even sexual content, but they need to be aware of it because they need to know like who they can talk to if they come across it. Is the big thing.
Thank you.
Natalie, do you have any plans like to do more teaching for parents? Because I know almost all of these issues do not occur during school. but then they have to be dealt with in
In
school.
school.
So it's time that's taken away from teaching and learning, where we're talking about something that happened over the weekend.
I know.
And also the consequences for any, not using your phone appropriately really are not in the hands of the school usually, right? They're in the hands of parents,
So there
right?
are a couple speakers out there, but we've also talked about, I've spoken with Pam about, there's a subscription that we can buy as a district and share it with parents, and it's Josh at Social Media Savvy. And he sends these really relevant emails, and he has webinars, and he'll say, the new dangerous app, what's good about it, what's bad about it, and really lays it on the line. So I get those emails, and it's something that we talked about next year putting in our software. It's not a very expensive subscription, but then also there's a speaker at St. John's Prep that we've looked into because we've presented with her before. She's the vice principal at St. John's Prep, but she used to be their technology digital learning specialist, Kerry Gallagher, and she does a lot of presentations to students and parents at night about screen time, about digital footprints. And she's excellent, and she's local. So she's someone that we've also discussed about becoming more parent savvy. We just hope that we get people when we put together these presentations, like we did a Google presentation, and we had 6 parents there. And we advertised it and had a lot of people that said, oh yeah, we'll be there. And it was, I think a couple of you were there, so then 3 parents. But, so, Google.
For what,
No, the one that you get the email from?
Oh, Josh at either Smart Social or Social Media Savvy, but I'll forward a sample email to the school committee.
for what it's worth, I know Mr. Kalishman occasionally sends out like here's what I'm coming across, and, obviously some parents read it more than others, and, but it's useful.
We're educators,
It's
so we
useful.
should be educating parents as well.
Yeah.
But is there a place on our website for parents to have like a social media corner?
We wouldn't put anything on our website that's someone else's content that we can't control their site, so we try to reduce that. But we can send emails home with resources, but we wouldn't do that on our own site.
I didn't know if there was like a good video to show parents about, I don't even know.
Well, I mean, it's
So
not
much
technology, but, well, it sort of is. Like, when Mr. Kalishman sent home the thing about vapes and, what they, as basic as what they look like and what you should be looking for. And it's the same kind of thing, with this, that that you're gonna pick up the phone and see things on there that you might not necessarily know or understand. So,
I thought we did have a speaker that that it was gonna like branch 7th and 5th and 7th, so then the kids would get it again. Because
That sounds vaguely
we
familiar.
paid like a good, I remember something, it was a speaker, I just remember the kids coming home like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to have whatever, because I'm not 14 yet, or whatever.
We did
people were
have one at the
deleting.
high school several years
Oh,
ago.
that woman.
But it
She
was at the
excellent
middle
from
school.
Marblehead.
Yeah.
I think she was middle school too.
The Attorney General's office we had some kind of partnership with the Attorney General's office that came and did a social media presentation a couple of years ago.
I vaguely
I
remember
think
that.
I remember it being fairly expensive, to be honest, but I think it was so worth it, and we had really great feedback. I'll have to ask Pam what it was. It was definitely at the middle school,
No,
though.
it was the woman from Danvers or Mar.
Yeah, she's from Marblehead. It was after.
Presentation in the gym.
Right,
Yes, sorry.
right.
Well, thank you. We've taken
No,
up a lot of your
no,
time
thank
tonight.
you.
And I know Emily's patiently waiting in the audience for the next meeting.
Thank you guys for everything that you do.
Thank you so
Oh, one last question. What were you holding? What were you?
Oh.
What's your new toy?
These are, this is an Apple trackpad, and we have them for the presenters. So Natalie, Katie, and I each have one, and we share them out at our school. And so it's really a mouse pad. Just, so.
But it
just
looks
a-
like it has nothing
on it.
Oh, you can call it digitizer.
It's a trackpad, so it's a smart trackpad from Apple, so you can just look for an Apple trackpad and you'll see one. But it's fun, it does add a little value to our presentation, and we bought some for the photo students. So when they're editing, they can freestyle on the mouse pad.
Crazy.
So next up, we have you, Ms. Barnum.
Thanks.
Now, before the technology team leaves, can you show me how to get this up there?
Well, I have it here,
Vlad's got it for you.
Glad, okay.
and I have remote
Up
control.
there.
If you share it with Vlad, you can open it.
It's on the,
Oh, it's already-
it's on
Yeah,
the
we
drive.
have it on.
it's already loaded, but.
Yeah, it's on the drive.
Sorry, I would have set you up early today.
Does that mean I'm standing at the podium?
Wherever you'd like. You
why
can do
don't
it at
you
the
have it?
podium, you can join us at the
It's
table.
open. This is
No,
yours.
maybe you don't have it.
This is yours.
Yeah, I think that's my
I
I thought I saw it.
Yeah.
So funny standing up here.
If you feel more comfortable and you want to sit at the table, please,
Maybe it
you know,
isn't
we've got
there.
lots of space, obviously.
Oh, I see technology and student
Thank you,
services,
guys.
but
Thank
maybe
you
it
very
isn't there.
much. How come I can never find
No, I don't think it is there.
the file with
Okay.
just our stuff?
Advancing towards
Oh,
me.
share
Share with me. Fun.
Oh, yeah, you have to click on the
Okay.
date, it's weird.
I'm gonna come sit next to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that all right? It's not awkward standing up. Okay.
You're here, great.
Thank you for having me. And then, speaking of technology, I was learning that as I was sitting at my computer last night trying to put everything together, I was like, I'm just gonna link all of the reports in this one presentation. So all of the reports that are, so there are snapshots within the presentation are all fully linked on the first page, this one,
there you
under
go.
the overview. So, hi, I'm Emily Barnum. I'm the Director of Guidance. Nice to see you all again. Nice to see you in the audience and at home. Tonight, we're going to cover, I will be brief, I promise, 5 different reports. The first 2 really are about students and their plans. In Report 1, Swampscott High School graduate information, those students that have moved on from Swampscott High School and what their plans are, and kind of a look back. In the second report, Swampscott Public School students who have not graduated, who didn't graduate with their original class year, so we'll cover that, formerly known, I think, as the dropout report, but I'm continuing to rename it. And then I think a little bit separate from that are those final 3 reports, more about standardized testing, AP tests, the advanced placement tests, and kind of how our students are performing. So I think my sense of those is that they're kind of 2 different discussions there. So in Report 1, again, these are sort of highlights of the actual full report, but our Swampscott High School graduate data, and just, for everyone, just as a reminder, our philosophy really is that, everyone does have their own path and is going at their own pace, and that it's, our hope that the students will embrace whatever path that is and put forth full effort in whatever path that they've chosen and make their own pace along the way as we kind of encourage them. Each year we take a survey of the students who are graduating, and last year 99% of them said that they were excited about their final choice, whatever that was, so we were happy to see that. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the schools that the students This is amazing. were accepted to. Yeah, and I will say, yeah, it was a great year for the current graduating class. It's awesome. We're really excited about them, and I think we had spoken earlier on in the school year. It feels like a lot of students and their early decision applications. Again, that's the application where you apply and you're sort of committing to one school, and you're saying, regardless of the financial aid award package, I am committing and contracting to come to the school. And I think my sense is this year that really helped the admissions portion of it. It's not, the be-all and the end-all. Obviously, there are other considerations to look at, as a student and a family, the academic piece, the social cultural piece, and obviously the financial element of it. So that's not necessarily for everyone, but I think that did help. And in general, it was just a great year, really diverse set of interests and goals. Love to hear what the students are doing. So we're really excited. It was a good year. I'm
Any
excited.
colleges that we just haven't seen before, or any?
Lately, we haven't seen Stanford, and not the entire time I've been here. So this is my 10th year, so Stanford
So that's
is first year. We don't, our.
Not even necessarily like
Yeah.
the marquee places.
Yeah,
but
sure. But
just
the other
sort of
ones,
that
yeah.
are more
Like, I think I just saw Goucher on there. That's under one of those colleges in the list of colleges that change lives. Just sort of a different kind of environment, a great school. I think what happens is, a little bit, we're a small community, students kind of get used to the same names, and we are a little bit spoiled being in the Northeast, where we see so many schools right next to us, basically, that are these marquee schools, as you're talking about. And I think they kind of get used to those names, and so they end up being some of the names that they apply to. But I think more and more in the past 5 years, students have been going out more. There's excellent institutions, like, for example, Bucknell is a school that our students just don't apply to as frequently, but it's a tremendous school, more like a Tufts, but Tufts is more like a familiar family name to, I think, our students and families.
yeah, some of the Loyola schools we don't see as much. There's some really great schools in general, I think, and Oberlin is another one. There are a lot of funky ones this year. It's great, and I think that's important that students continue not only to look at but apply to some of the schools outside of our state. And we are unique in that our students are high-performing students in a high-performing state, in a region that has high-performing, higher ed. So, anyway, so it's been a great year with regard to that. Oh, it didn't look like my notes came up, but the highlights here are, by and large. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. The percentage of students continuing education, whether that's going direct to a four-year college or going to a two-year school, remains at about 96% of the population, and 82% over the last 5 years going directly to a four-year school. And I think we're also noticing, this last year in 2018, the most recent percentage was 4% electing to take a gap year. So that is taking a year, before going to the 2 or 4 year university. And it's mostly the 4-year university that students are taking the gap year from as a way to explore your interests, do something totally different, whether that's, traveling across the country, doing a semester at sea.
Growing up.
What's that? Growing up? Yes, there's a lot of that to be done.
For the kids who are taking that gap
Yeah.
year, are they already accepted into a program, or are they working on that on their gap year?
Yeah, I love that question, and it's something that I think it's important to think about. Another philosophy of ours is kind of, it's similar. One is keep an open mind, because I think that once students start the process early on, and I think, there's conversations that you're entering early in the 9th grade year, but let's call it end of junior year. We always say kind of keep an open mind. They think, they do want a small school, or they don't want a small school, or they want to go to a 4-year university in New England, or they don't want that. We always say keep an open mind, because the process of going through and learning about schools and environments and different cultures in certain parts of the country really gives you a lot of information about what's useful to you as an individual, what feels good, what feels right, what feels comfortable, what's a good fit, in all those 3 areas. And I think we also say, I'm going to get back to your original question, and we also say keep all of your options on the table. And so to that end, we really recommend students keep all options on the table, because what you think you might want end of junior year might be very different, maybe even 180 degrees different than where you really feel April of your senior year. So we say keep an open mind, keep options on the table. And what we would recommend is students kind of go through the process in any case, at least with a couple different schools, and then make a decision to defer their enrollment. And different schools have different policies, so some schools would really prefer that you only defer for a semester. That doesn't happen in all cases, but that, different schools have different policies. So we would recommend that, so they have all the options on the table, not knowing exactly what they might want come end of April, early May, that they have as many options as possible. Yeah.
Is a prep school counted in that gap year or not?
Not in the gap year. That's counted in the continuing ed number. So yes, thank you. That would be
Oh,
included
to
in
do a
that.
PG year?
Yeah.
Green, yeah, PG, postgrad.
That's
for
green,
that.
okay.
What else was I going to say? Yeah, and I think that is something, because we've seen an increase in it in the past couple of years, and I think it's an important path that we focus on. I think that would be another way in which our department over the next 3 to 5 years is really looking at what are recommendable, robust programs that will give students, opportunities to grow up, to develop some skills that they, could really use. And be able to apply that wherever they go. And so what do those programs look like? What does the process look like, and how can we help them along the way? So, because I think it's sort of a nebulous idea, this I want to take a gap year, this sense that I feel like I'm burnt out and not really ready for that 4-year huge commitment and investment, but maybe I don't really know what that looks like. And I think, there are some resources that we have in some companies locally that are great, but I think that's on our list of things that we can work on. So those are our graduation highlights. Did I go the right way? And I included this again from last year because I just think it's useful. Again, sort of there's this perception, I think, of the 1990s years being stronger than we are today. And so just as a note about colleges and continuing ed, in the 90s, the percentage of graduating students pursuing continuing ed was lower than it is today, and the highest really was ever around 90%, and closer to 73 going to the 4-year school. Yeah, which I think is fun to look at. And then
I've not heard that reputation that the 90s were better.
I feel like ever since I've been here, I think it's just misinformation or a misconception about what our students are up to and kind of where they're going and where they're headed and all of their tremendous successes in myriads of different areas. So I put it up there last year because I think it's a few, probably just a few people.
Yeah, like I have one parent who has called me pretty consistently,
Yeah.
To tell me about how awful the dropout rate is and
Yeah.
how it's gone downhill.
Yeah.
And the data says otherwise.
And it's
Because the
great.
90s are already the good old days, like John's
Right.
saying.
Totally.
Like it is.
Exactly. And we always welcome.
Yeah, we're so old.
That was like 10 years ago, wasn't it?
No.
I know it does feel like 10 years ago. But I welcome a conversation with any parent at any time that has questions about that.
Okay.
We really do at the prospective student
Careful
open
what you
house.
ask for.
No, it's fine. I think it's good. I think it's
Watching, I'm
really
thinking, I'm not
helpful.
calling her again about that.
Yeah. So students who have not graduated, this continues to be really low. I think the major feature here in looking at these numbers are students who withdraw and what are they going to do. So of last school year, only 2 withdrew with real plans unknown. We didn't have any homeschool last year. 4 went on to do their high set, and 5 choosing to go other paths.
What's TECA?
So TECA is an online program, so it's like you really withdraw from Swampscott High School and you go and you enroll online in a public school and you get a diploma from there. So it's totally separate, has nothing to do with it. It's just as if you were to move towns.
That's like homeschool.
Yes, but
It actually has
in
IEPs
a way,
though, and everything.
yeah.
Like they provide special education services. It's its own LEA.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's totally separate.
And like a guidance counseling staff, it is like its own school, it's just happening online. So we actually really try hard not to use that language. What did you say?
It's free.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's 2, Greenfield Academy
And
and
TECA.
TECA are the 2. All the information's on the Department of Ed website. Parents that's another option for families that are looking for different.
is it sometimes kids with school anxiety? Or is it, there's no class, it's not a,
Maybe, but it's still, but
because there's like 5
I'm just 5
and
seems
then
like a
7,
lot.
and then 7 the year before that.
I was just curious.
Any commonalities there?
maybe it's the more digital world that
Yeah,
these
maybe
kids are
the more
familiar with.
digital world, and I think it maybe just because it's become more popular, more students are doing it, this idea of like accessibility.
Just out of curiosity, do you know where those 7 kids in 2017 ended up? Like, did they end up at a 2 or 4-year college?
I don't actually, but we could totally
Just
look
sort of-
into it.
so-
Yeah.
Sort of curious, like.
Yeah, what happened to them? I
what
do
the-
know one of the ones who withdrew in the 16-17 year is continuing to take AP coursework online, and will come, and she's a senior.
Huh.
So she'll come here and test with us, just because we happen to
Yeah.
be a local test center. But that, in that regard, it's really working out for her. She's continuing to move through. I think the online format probably isn't for every student. I'm sure it's very difficult, so it's
Be very self-motivated.
very self-reliant. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd be curious to know where they,
how they
Where they
where
wound
they
up.
ended up. I'll look into it. The SAT data, this is the 3rd report from 2018. I included in your report the 2018 score report comparison by town. One of them is included in this. But last year was an awesome year for us, the highest I've seen since I've been here, in terms of mean SAT scores. As you can see, this is Swampscott High School versus the state. Math, 627 was the mean score, and 602 for evidence-based reading and writing, which are really strong scores. We've seen a steady increase over the last 5 years.
And so that's this year's seniors.
Correct.
Okay, so probably a correlation between what we're seeing and acceptances and,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, there is a little bit of overlap among classes, but yes, primarily so. I'm just gonna follow with your computer, Gargi, if you don't mind too, since it's right here. And then, so I included, back since 2011 in this one, next to the
Wow.
2018 evidence-based reading and writing for local towns. And as you can see, Swampscott is the highest here. And actually, I don't know where they got the 605 number, because we provided the numbers to Linfield to develop the graph, but we were 60, I think it was 602. But still, as you can see, we've done really, really well relative to all area towns. And the same is true for the math scores. And here are the math scores. Again, like as you can see, we've done really well this past year. It was noticeably different. And, it's important to look at too, in 2016, the SAT had that major overhaul, and, our experience with it was that it was more difficult for the students, in fact, and actually they can just continue to do well. So that's good for us. We will talk about briefly the ACT report, and we won't spend a ton of time on it, because really in the Northeast, the SAT just happens to be the test that the students gravitate towards. For us, it's also, unique to our high school. We offer the PSAT here, so that gives them that extra practice. So that, that's another reason why I think that you're sort of drawn to the SAT as a standardized test. The ACT doesn't have quite the equivalent preliminary ACT, so it's one of the reasons why we don't offer it. We also don't have the ACT here. So largely our students are taking the SAT relative to the ACT, although college, in terms of college admissions, either is perfectly acceptable. So I will talk really briefly about the ACT data. This is the one thing I missed this week. I'm so sorry. We had a busy beginning of the week, and this was on my to-do list, was to find the national score. Although I did see that the highest mean score was Connecticut. Massachusetts had the second highest mean scores, and the highest mean score for Connecticut, was 25.6, and I think ours is 25.5. So we are not far behind the highest. So it's scored from 1 to 36. So 25 seems like a lot lower, actually, significantly relative to our SAT data. But we only had 44 students take it last year, and it is a tough test. It's very, very fast paced. You have less than a minute per test question. Sometimes you have even less than that, depending on the section. So it's a tough test, and you have to be able to read quickly. There's a lot more science graphing and diagrams, and that, although there's no prior knowledge required, it's just a more difficult test in some ways for some students. So we continue to be really proud of our students in terms of the standardized test scores regardless. So you can see that the ACT provides data both in composite score and in benchmark data. So basically, our students are essentially meeting benchmarks, and we have no concerns in terms of curriculum and skills and capabilities. Looking at across all different aptitudes in grading. So, but their benchmark score correlates to a 50% chance of receiving a B or higher in a first-year college course, or the 75% chance of receiving a C or higher. So, as you can see, we're doing. We met all four, and like I said, we had a really low amount of students taking the ACT last year, so again, just 44 students. And I've already kind of explained the reasons why for that. And then finally, the advanced placement score reports for last year and the 5-year trends. Just a quick review. What is the AP? So the AP level is the highest possible level, or I should say the most advanced, most rigorous, most quickly paced level with least amount of support in the classroom, covering the most breadth and depth in terms of material. And the earliest you can begin to take in AP level courses in your sophomore year with AP Euro, so grade 9 students do not take AP level coursework. The tests are scored from 0 to 5, 5 being the highest score. Students in our school, for any student that's enrolled in a course, the students are required to take the exam and also absorb the cost of that exam. Although there is no like good or bad or right or wrong, a passing score generally or a solid score an acceptable score would be about a 3. Many colleges and universities will accept a 3 as credit, and I think we talked a little bit about that, a few weeks ago, but just as an overview in terms of receiving credit or value for the course. College admissions committees really do look favorably upon a transcript that has strong secondary program rigor. And AP coursework is a universally recognized program, and it's something that all colleges recognize. And so I think there's value in that. There's value once the students actually get to the college in being assigned credit, depending on their score and their coursework and the institution. So there's certainly value in terms of the credit, but also of doing undergrad research, being able to register earlier on than some of your peers. So this table is some 5-year trends. Here you can see that in 2019, so we haven't obviously gone into the AP testing season, which happens in May, but we did order 451 exams. Which is the highest, ever since I've been here. So that will be a lot of exams administered at the high school. Last year, the percentage of students with scores is about 76%. So that's the number of students, although you'll see in the next graph, of all the exam scores, almost 50% are a 4 or a 5. So those are very, very strong scores. For anyone. As you can see, we're outscoring both Massachusetts and global averages for years. I had the same thing twice in there? Sorry. Oh, no, maybe it was just a different, yes, there were just two different notes, but yeah, we kind of covered that already. And then this is just the breakdown of subject scores.
Right.
And I think in the means, so the means of all the tests taken in each individual class and how many exam takers we had in each class. So happy to answer any questions about those two. And those ones that are italicized have not been offered. So for example, Calc BC, only 3 students took it, but that's because we didn't offer it, but they were prepared to take that exam and wanted to take that exam and did really well.
Look at the scores, yeah.
Yeah, they did great.
Same for German.
So, what was it, 3 years ago when they made the decision that everybody who takes the exam has to test for it?
Yeah,
Has there been any flap about that, or no?
not really.
Just is what it is?
Yeah, not really.
What was the question?
Remember a few years ago when they made the decision that everybody who takes the course has to sit for the exam? Because prior to that, it was an option. So I was just wondering if there was any
Not really.
flap about it.
There really hasn't been. I'd say, there have been a couple of students who, and I completely see this perspective as a parent, who have take 8 APs over the course of 2 years, and at $95 per exam, that's a lot of money. So I can appreciate, that kind of situation. There is a concession for students who meet the federal guidelines. The test is $15, and so that has not been an issue. And if we have always encouraged, if there is a student or a family that meets with hardship, that they can certainly come to us and we can talk
figure
about
it out.
absorbing some of the costs there. Absolutely.
Is that the enrollment of the class or the exam takers?
Well, it should be both.
It should be
right?
both.
It should be both. I will say, though, there have been a couple of situations where a student, was sick and couldn't make an exam, so we were really specific to call that an exam taker. What are you looking at?
I'm just like wondering how are we, calculus species, there's only 3.
Okay, so that's,
That's what she,
That's the one that
we don't
wasn't
offer.
a course.
Oh,
But
okay.
you could take the test.
But you can
anybody can
test
take
out.
it. Yeah, anybody here can take any of the tests, yeah. And so, for example, German, we had 2,
In German
German
school.
speakers,
Right.
yep, and so because you could potentially get the credit at the college level,
Right.
So we didn't offer AP German.
That's correct, yeah.
Physics 1? 10?
physics one we did offer, and 2.
What's the average credit earned for colleges, do you think,
0.
through AP?
So they will give you 3 college credits for a qualifying score, and most colleges, the selective colleges and universities tend to be more strict, but by and large, an enormous percentage of schools
I
will
thought for the
assign
most part,
credit.
it just placed you into a higher level. No, they actually give you credit?
A lot of them, for example, and I think I mentioned that, the student that we had come back speak at our alumni panel in December, she's at University of Richmond. She had 6 of her, out of her 8 APs be awarded credit. That is a ton of credit.
That is a lot of
So when you think about the 90, so for her, she
Right,
was a
that's
student who
very-
had 8,
Right.
and it was very expensive for her at $95 per exam. But in terms of
Like a year,
private,
it's like a year of credits.
Yeah.
exactly. And so some students, I had a student recently who had emailed me, a totally different student, graduated, went to a local university, totally to a B+ average student. She's able to graduate a year early because of her
Wow.
APs here.
That's
Yeah.
a lot.
And you can get out of the core classes.
Exactly.
So you get to go
Yeah,
right
that's
into a
right.
major
Yeah,
and
that's
your
what-
interest. It's
Right.
just
Yeah.
nice.
And that was true, that's what all the feedback we keep hearing. And we're not pushing AP down anybody's throats by any means, but there is certainly some
benefits.
value in it. Absolutely. Yeah, so
It's amazing that at Richmond, she can knock a year off. of-
pretty awesome.
That's-
And she was saying this summer, she's going to do an internship
$70,000.
with one of the local hospitals, which she never would have been able to do because she wasn't able to access the course that she, to
Right.
get into that would have given her the opportunity to go to the internship. It was pretty awesome. That's great. Really, really cool. So those are the scores, and like I said, so this is just the breakdown of all of the exam scores. So, in 2017, it was 50%, in 2018, it's 49%, so essentially 50% of our scores are 4 or 5, and then an additional 30% of
Wow.
our 3. So, you think about who is taking the AP, and I wanted to just mention, so, I'd encourage you to look at the presentation that I gave on March 19th. We actually had it filmed, but there was some confusion in the editing process, and the presentation got lost. But it's totally fine, but the gist of it is, the gist of it, and I think it was important, the AP presentation is about, there's a informational presentation, some of the data that's in there, but a conversation with a student and some perspective from AP teachers. And I think what's interesting to note there, and I think it's definitely our philosophy, is like there is no like AP student, or what is an AP student? Who is taking AP? It's anybody who's really interested in a certain content area and has the motivation to do well. So that could be in art history, that could be in physics too. It really depends on the student. And I think, you have to think about balance. You have to think about your motivation, your self-reliance, your ability to kind of get stuff done. But it really could be anyone. And when you think about scores, when you think about data, there's always more to the story. I know when we look at the scores, you might look at AP Psych scores and think, well, they tend to be a little lower. We had high enrollment. Like, I wonder why that is. Is it because of the teaching? Is it because of instruction? Is it because of class time hours? Or is it because AP Psychology is a more accessible class? People tend to be more interested in it, and therefore more students are taking it. The goal isn't necessarily to get a 5 on the AP Psych exam, but it's because they're really interested in the test, and that might be their first AP that they've ever taken and will ever take. So you kind of have to dig a little bit deeper, but we did give a presentation on that, and I think it was awesome because, one of the students, she was a volunteer. We put it out to all the seniors, would anybody kind of like to come speak at course selection time, and she volunteered to come speak, and she said, I wish I had taken more. I was recommended for 2 my senior year, AP Lit and AP Psych. I decided only to do 1 because I'm a 3-season athlete. I didn't want to totally torture myself senior year thinking about the college application process and everything else that goes on. She was like, but it was so awesome. It was totally manageable. I was able to get out of Intro to Psych when I got to school, and now I'm taking the more interesting psych classes. So it's more anecdotal evidence to support kind of what we see in the data, and continue to hear from alumni too. So I think that's great. So
Wait, that video's lost, you're saying, or is it there?
yeah, so the link here is just the boring old presentation slides, but
I saw it, and it was
Yeah.
good, and people asked a lot of questions too.
I thought it ended up going really well.
That was great.
Yeah, thanks. And I think we talked about with the TV production crew maybe doing something in studio.
Right.
Again,
Try to recreate a little bit.
Yeah, recreate it. We just haven't had time to do it yet, but it's in my mind. Anyway, so I think there's I think the AP is great, obviously, it's not for everyone for everyone at every year in every subject, but there's so much value to it, and our students do great. So I would encourage a student, so that was where I was originally going with that, is, there is no AP student. If you're a student, you're thinking like, hey, I wonder how I might do. I think your chances are pretty good. If you look at, almost 80% of our scores are a 3, 4, or a 5, your chances of doing well are pretty good. So I'd say go for it if you're interested in it.
That's good.
Yeah. I think we've kind of covered the highlights, but basically, it's actually 96% over the last 5 years. An average of, it's 82% of our students going on directly to a 4-year college. I updated it right before I came. I was proofreading. But it essentially is 50% of all our AP exam scores are 4 or 5. And we're hovering again at that, 80% of our students are receiving a 3 or higher on the exam. So, and we're outscoring the global averages by almost 20%. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's that.
That's exciting.
Yeah, our students are awesome, and I will say, it has been so nice to see the students this week. I know, unfortunately, due to tragic circumstances, but to watch them all together, like, come home and take care of each other, and they're just such great kids all around, all of them. It's really nice to see. They're doing some awesome things out there, and they've been really kind to one another. It's just it's a wonderful community, and we're really happy to be a part of it. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Are you standing up and doing this?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so this is the Cpac update. Yes. Before we get into that, can we have you brag a little bit about your Rotary, about the Rotary Award? It's really exciting.
So my Cpac child, who has struggled through the years, was nominated for the Excellence or
I don't know.
Standards of Excellence Award. So in the Swampscott Special Education Student Services are directly responsible for putting together the pieces that helped him to achieve his goals. So I'm very grateful for everything that Martha and all of her chairs and teachers have done over the years.
Well, I didn't do that as a setup for you. I really wanted to give you the opportunity to brag.
Actually, we should be,
It's preschool.
Yeah, I know.
In the guiding force, so I'm extremely grateful.
we should be incredibly thankful because currently our special education parent advisory council is headed by Lisa, Julian Hayes, who is kind of a team of one, although people do come to our meetings when we have them, but when it comes to, being an officer on it, or we haven't really been able to get more people involved, which I totally understand because people are so overcommitted and are working and have challenges at home. But I will say Lisa's been incredible. She's partnered with Marblehead, so we have access to many of the workshops that they will provide. But the most important thing I think Lisa's done is she's been able to be a resource for parents who have questions or don't know where to go, and she points them in the right direction, which isn't to Facebook or to a online community. It's about the people that can really answer your questions and support the families. And so I am just so thankful to work with her because she is such a team. I feel like we're a team. So we're very, very lucky. I would love more members to help her. But I mean, you say something too. You had some insight into why you think things are.
So this is a testament to how well Martha is doing things for student services.
Should we give her a microphone?
Generally, when CPACs are strong, the district's doing poorly. So
Give her a microphone.
Sorry.
Joe's coming. No, Joe's coming. I could see him getting jiggity
Yeah, I
back
could
there.
see racing down, sorry.
So this is a testament to how well Martha has been performing with student services and how well the chairs have been performing as chairs. They are doing an excellent job, and when everyone works together as a team and does an excellent job, the district's happy. And when your district is happy, you have low CPAC support. Districts that have really strong CPACs have a lot of conflict, controversy. So while I would love to have more people,
I'm also proud of what our district is doing and the support the school committee gives and the support the superintendent gives, because all the cogs are working really well and parents are happy. And so
That's
you
awesome.
should all give yourself a big pat in the back because it's a good thing. But yes, I would like some positive things. I do really well with communication with the families. However, I feel like we could bring a little bit more to the workshop table, and I just can't do both things.
Right.
So if I'm communicating with the parents, it'd be nice to have someone in the community to help me book a workshop, 1 or 2 a year, not a lot. Help organize the meetings or little talks. So
I think it's kind of a testament to our small town
True.
feel, that we're 3 square miles and people will grab you at the parking lot or at the library where you are. And I think that's really a nice thing because, you know, you have direct contact with a person.
Right.
So I think that's just unique to our community. I think if we were more spread out or we were larger, it may be a different story, but I don't think it is like that. People
No.
see me too on the soccer field and you know, and we're readily accessible, and that's a good thing.
True. And I think once, and hopefully we will have a new school, once there is one larger school, I think that the Cpac would even be more cohesive, and I think there would be more membership, because when you have 3 separate elementary schools, it's really hard to know.
It's hard to get
What's
to
even
everybody.
relevant?
It's hard to
Right.
get, and it's the same chair, and Raina Mello is amazing. Amazing. I just hear so, you know, I speak to her, I see wonderful things happening with her. The families are coming out of their meetings happy and engaged, and just, so I think she has an amazing feat ahead of her, just organizing all 3 schools, and she does such an excellent job at it. So, but I think if it was one school, it would make it so much easier to communicate as a whole.
And bring our community together, which would be nice,
Definitely.
or sooner.
Sooner.
So that'd be great. So Lisa's excellent, so I can't.
But I
be,
thank the whole team for.
you know, it's just so nice to work with her. So tonight, I am doing our State of Student Services. So I'm Martha Raymond. I'm the Director of Student Services for Swampscott. I started in 2001. I was the only special education teacher in our integrated preschool. We now have 5 integrated preschool programs. I also live in Swampscott. I have 4 students. I have 1 at the high school, 1 in 8th grade, 1 in 6th grade, and 1 in 4th grade. So I feel like, you know, I get to know our community on that level, but also work here too. And it's been just a great experience. I love it. I love it here. Also incredible to work under the superintendent, Pam Angelakis, because she really puts student needs first. And I think that is really important, especially in student services. So I did this presentation in December, I believe it was December, right? When we met and were able to actually give information to the town selectmen, to finance committee, to, I don't know if it was planning board
Capital
there.
Improvement Committee and,
Lots of committees.
yeah, all the town committees.
And it was really, I think, an important piece, because I think unless you're personally touched by having a child with a disability, you may not know all the different things that go into play. So I think it was important for them to hear. So I'm going to go into it. I'm not going to be, I'll try to go, it's pretty lengthy, but I will go through as quickly as I can. Well, special education acronyms, we're filled with them. FAPE, free and appropriate public education, IEP, IDEA. So it's, how do you make sense of all of this? And it's, I think unless you're living in it, sometimes you don't know what all the acronyms mean. See if I can get it to go. Do I have to do it here? There we go. So we have a lot of mandates in special education. IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and it includes 2 fundamental requirements: that a child will receive a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. And usually you would say that the least restrictive environment may be your community school. Sometimes not, though. If you think about it, sometimes if we have a child who has really significant challenges, it may be less restrictive for them to be in a private school or public collaborative. We may have more opportunities open to them. And so there's just a range of continuums of placements that we have to consider. The referral process, we're in charge of child find. So wherever we are, if we suspect a child with disability, we can refer. Pediatricians can refer. Private preschool programs can refer, private schools can refer. So that is our mandate, is to actually find children who have disabilities so that we can get services to them. So here are some of the agencies too. Department of Children and Families can also refer. We obtain consent. So usually if I get a referral, we send out a consent form to parents within 5 days. We have 45 school days to evaluate and meet to determine if a child has a disability. And if they do, what types of services and goals and objectives do we need to write in a plan. And there's write an individual education plan, the IEP. We consider educational disabilities, so not diagnoses. So here's the disabilities that we can consider. Autism, ASD, that's another one of the acronyms. An emotional disability, sometimes you'll see BSP, which is a behavior support plan. Communication, SLPs, or speech language pathologists, who might work with a child who may have communication disability. Neurological, CP would be for cerebral palsy. Some students may have a at birth injury, and that may have a neurological disability. Developmental delay, that's for children ages 3 to 8. Physical disability. Specific learning, that's SLD, could be in reading, math, also writing. Sensory disability would be hearing and blind. Intellectual disability and health, ADHD actually falls under health. Here's the variety of services that we can provide in an IEP and placement. Some of the things that people may not think of, I know people think of reading and math instruction, but there's social skills and counseling, vision therapy, there's behavioral supports, but we're a BCBA, who's a board certified behavior analyst. Actually, that's also something that I am too. Orientation and mobility for students who may have visual issues or mobility issues, know how to navigate a building or their community. Assistive augmentative communication consultation for students who have difficulty speaking. They may have iPads or different devices in order to speak and communicate. Nursing, functional academics, activities of daily living, vocational services. These are all things that we can provide an IEP. And then the variety of placements, from full inclusion to we have students in residential programs. Here's all the staff that we have. Special education teachers, ABA tutors, ESPs, school psychologists, board certified behavior analysts, school adjustment counselors, guidance counselors. These are all the people that actually even currently work in our district. Team chairs, we have 4 excellent team chairs. We're so fortunate. Alyssa Brothers is now our director of our integrated preschool. She's doing a fabulous job. Rena Mello coordinates our elementary. Christine DeJalonis does the middle school, and Erin Wilson is at our high school. We are very, very fortunate too that Mona Bloomstein, who is the previous director and my mentor, is our out-of-district coordinator. So actually she attends all of our meetings. You're required to have a person who's attending the meetings for students in out-of-district placements, as well as do an observation, and she really is happy to keep her hand in it. And it's really nice to have someone with just her expertise working with some of our most vulnerable students. Clinical services. So some services, we may not have the amount of cohort of students to actually hire someone full-time, so we might contract for vision therapy, OT, PT, or clinical psychologists. Programming, we have an integrated preschool program. We have a learning academy, students with emotional disabilities at Hadley. Autism inclusion program, students with autism or social skills deficits, primarily located at Stanley. Our Strive Learning Center, students who might require a combination of supported inclusion and small group instruction at Stanley and our middle school. Our Discovery program, students with autism or intellectual disabilities who require one-to-one instruction at Stanley Middle School and high school. A language-based learning center, students with specific learning disabilities as dyslexia, Clark Middle and High School. Our Learning Center, students with learning and language disabilities at Clark and our middle school. Our Harbor program, students with anxiety, middle school, high school. It also can serve students who might have a health issue. Resource room, students with learning disabilities. It's available at all schools. And transition services, we actually have an interesting program that we have students participating in now. at Salem State, where they can be concurrently enrolled at our high school, but also going post 18 to 22 and going to receive college credit, which has actually been highly successful. I know we had Lexi come back and talk about it. Okay, let's see. So here's some historical data. This does not include our preschool numbers because it's not, to looking at it into averaging against our total enrollment. But you can see the numbers are going up. Actually, and it's going up even more this year. I think we've had a little uptick in students with emotional disabilities at the kindergarten, early childhood level. It presents more as a behavioral issue then, and then anxiety in middle and high school.
It's a big jump from last year.
Growing trend. There's the how many initial evaluations that we did last year. I'll have our current number, by the time we get to June. Usually about a quarter of our evaluations, initial evaluations, are not eligible. Our evaluations come in from either from our teachers or from parents. So here's other encompassing pieces of what I do and what our team does. We are constantly having to update our testing kits and protocols. So Pearson has really got they really, most of the time we're purchasing most of our testing kits from them. But every time they update a new testing kit, the Wyatt comes out, the Wyatt 3, the Wyatt 4, we have to update it. And you also have to buy all the protocols with those. Translations, we have, last time I think I did this, 31 different languages being spoken. So if we are going to evaluate a student who their first language may not be English, we would have to find an evaluator. This is where we also would do contractually find somebody, a psychologist who speaks Spanish or a speech pathologist who speaks Russian, and we would test the child in their first language. We may also have to translate IEPs and testing that we did for parents so they can read it in their first language. We do professional development and curriculum materials, support the Wilson Reading Program, zones of regulation, social thinking. There's many more besides that, EdMark, the LIPS program. We have out-of-district tuitions, transportation. We fund independent education evaluations. I will say that is really down, and I think it's because we can provide an incredibly comprehensive evaluation now that would really rival any neuropsych, and really what will happen if we do our testing, they don't really have any tests to give anymore. So that number is way down. Legal fees for settlement conferences, hearings at the BSEA, and we've got our Cpac. That's the other thing that falls under student services. Here's some historical data and out-of-district placements. It always really hovers right around 30. We do have a little uptick in our residential programs for students, but really we're just about at that range. Here's just, people may not know the costs of programming. A residential program can cost anywhere from $140,000 to $225,000. Private day, $16,000 to $117,000. And a public day could be anywhere from $39,000 to $83,000. And it goes up about 2 to 3% every year. Transportation can cost upwards of $225 a day per child. If sometimes there's shared costs where we have a couple students on it, but running that van to a school is $225 a day. If there's a monitor, that's $90. If there's a nurse, that's $200. You could have a potential student costing upwards of $75,000 for transportation. If you're sharing a route, it could be $13,000, but it is a cost that people just probably don't think about. We also have in-district costs for that, so anytime for preschool, or if your child does require transportation for an IEP, that's also in-district. So a van costs $225 a day, and we contract for that service. Here's transportation costs. Ours have gone up, but we're right now at $725. Roughly will be about the same for next year. How do you predict for out-of-district tuition and transportation? So what we do, we obviously know the students that we currently have, but then we predict who we consider could be at risk for an out-of-district tuition or placement. We assign a percentage to that, and so that's how we keep track of what we think could possibly happen.
if a child moves in after April 1st, that district, and the child was in a private school placement or residential placement, that district, the sending district, actually holds that tuition for the entire year until the following year. So that's one way to help to have some predictability in what your cost would be. If they move in before April 1st, that you own it for that next year.
Is that true even from placements from out of state?
Out of state, that's a good question. I just had someone ask me that. It does not. So if they,
When
if
they
they
come,
move,
they're
if they leave
ours.
Massachusetts,
No, but if somebody,
They come
say,
here.
moves to here from Connecticut, yeah, New
you can
Hampshire.
you can also reevaluate too. We can also reevaluate and look at what program we have. Usually though, the sending, wherever the child is coming from, they have the best information about that child. We're usually trying to implement whatever they've sent us with, and then maybe at that time trying to do a reevaluation also. I will say there's real variability across the country, and we're kind of the mecca. So, it's just we have great services here. Similar to our medical institutions, I feel like we just have everything, which is great. We're very fortunate to live in Massachusetts. Circuit breaker. So there's some monies that we will get back from the state for our out-of-district tuitions. So Swampscott would be responsible for the first $44,000 of any out-of-district tuition, and then usually it's about 70 to 72%. Anything you spend above the foundation, you would get back from the state. There's no reimbursement for transportation. So here's some of the funding sources. Circuit breaker, we do have a grant 240. That's a federal grant that is $532,000 that funds ESPs. We have grant 262. $17,000 that funds consulting services, supplies, and professional development in the integrated preschool. I am actually attending a webinar on Friday where the grants may be consolidated and there could be possible cuts from the federal government. I don't know. But that is a really important revenue for us in town. Medicaid and non-resident tuition are also town revenues that come in. Also under student services are 504 plans, Americans with Disabilities Act. A student must have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life activity. It's about providing equal access. It's not a service law. It's really about providing accommodations, kind of leveling the playing field so the child has access to everything. Civil rights. Obviously, you see this disclaimer, are under all of our documentation, but I think it's so important that there's, discrimination is not tolerated in any form, in any way. Well, let's see. Here's all the things that come under civil rights: bullying, hazing, restraint, Title IX, Title II, home language, confidentiality, programs for pregnant students, time on learning, and code of conduct and discipline. So there's lots of all these encompass civil rights, and we really have to make sure we have procedures for all of them. Homeless and foster care reporting. There's been a real uptick in our foster care students that I've seen since I've been doing this. I don't know. There's probably a variety of reasons that are causing that, but it is another issue. I've got kids bouncing around between schools, and we are providing transportation for them. Homeless transportation actually is split between the two towns. So if a child is a Swampscott student and becomes homeless and say is living in Saugus or in Lynn or wherever they may be in a shelter, Saugus and Swampscott would share that transportation. Foster care is not shared. So wherever that student school that they're attending, that is the district that pays for the transportation, no matter where the foster care placement is.
So when you talk about foster care, are you talking about a child in Swampscott who winds up in foster care in another town?
Mm-hmm.
And so then we're paying for their transportation back here?
Yes.
Okay, and what about children from other towns?
It's the last school enrolled that's paying.
So if a child is in another town and they wind up with a foster parent here,
Yeah.
are they attending Swampscott schools?
They can.
They can.
They can, and sometimes that happens. You could enroll in the town that you are in foster care, or or you would go back to
Where you
your
were.
So they
original
make the
school.
choice.
So that there's
They
consistency.
do. I mean, the idea of the law is that you're trying to provide consistency, and the school, keeping the child in the school that they were attending is really the most important piece. I would say that's not always happening. I've had students bounce. So I think it's really about making sure people are on top of it and what's happening.
It's really hard right now, too. I just know from my experience in the foster care system, there's such a shortage of parents.
Yes.
That I've been working with a kid that's placed in Springfield right now. So that's, I mean, it'd be
When you
really
say
hard.
he's placed in Springfield, that's a child from Swampscott?
Well, I do some work with Boston.
In Boston.
Okay.
But from this side of the state.
From
that-
Boston.
Yeah.
placed
To
in-
Springfield, yeah.
Springfield.
Yeah, so for her to come back to Boston every day is.
It's pretty much impossible.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So I have actually attended a best interest hearing at DCF, just talking about this issue and making sure that we're, obviously considering the distance, which we don't want little, students on transportation for an extended amount of time, but also knowing while that home placement is not secure and may change, the one thing that is secure is the relationship that that child has with their teachers and with their counselors and with their principal, and really trying to maintain that at all costs. But it is really hard. Yeah, I mean, you can't have someone on transporting for 2 hours. So that is real. There's a real big uptick in that. We're also in charge of restraint training and reporting to the district too. I mean, to DESE. And that is all online now, and it has to be done. Usually it was done at the end of the year. Now it's done in time. So we have an online portal where we can actually report if a child was restrained and provide that information to them. We participate in financial audits, compliance monitoring for special education and civil rights, and indicator data reporting to the state Office of Special Education Programming that we do as well. And that data is usually looking at whether we are compliant with our 45-day timeline, whether we're compliant with children who are in early intervention, that they're starting by the time their 3rd birthday, looking at early childhood outcomes, looking at our data about what students are doing after they graduate. We have to do a survey to students on IEPs and where they are the year after they've graduated. So there's a lot of data that they're looking at that we're in charge of collecting. And then the state uses it and the federal government. As I just talked about, District of Origin is responsible for providing transportation to and from the School of Origin. That was a newer law. It all had fallen under homeless, but now it is separate. And there's a lot of confusion for towns, because it's really hard to understand who's the LEA at that point if the child's bouncing, and then but the parents are in a different town. This is just something I want to put up because I think this is probably one of the things that's causing our increase in foster care. And also a lot of grandparents now who are raising their grandchildren. If you look at that, that's an incredible uptick. That's Essex County. I also think we have a huge issue with technology. I recommend people check out this article. Really talks about in 2010 when more than 50% of families and adults owned a smartphone. That uptick in 2010 was the same year that our anxiety rates just skyrocketed up. And we are also seeing young early childhood students, kindergarten students who are coming in with more limited fine motor skills. They're not coloring or painting or playing with Play-Doh, but they're pretty good at swiping. We're having children who have difficulty waiting or understanding what it's like to be in a group, because the way the games and iPads and iPhones, how they're really constructed, they can provide automatic feedback and immediate gratification for everything, right? And you know that because you see kids at doctor's offices or at Uno's or at soccer fields, right? And where you used to have to kind of figure out how to entertain yourself while your older brother was playing soccer. Now you see little ones, looking and watching a video or on YouTube. It really, I think we haven't quite hit what that's going to look like, but we're starting to see the impact of that. I also will say, I think it's very interesting that the people creating these things in Silicon Valley do not let their children have iPads and iPhones.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a real important thing that we have to start looking at. Increase in suicide rates. You can see for Massachusetts, 35% increase from 1999 to 2016. That's huge. And the anxiety rates, now 1 in 4 children have between 13 and 18 have an anxiety disorder. We have the 2 new programs that we've created to support these students, the middle school and high school, Harbor and Swift. But I will say the good thing about these programs is that our hospitalization rates are down, and that's so important, and it's so important for people to remember that we have kids who feel like they have a safe place to be. The hard part, the number of students that we're having to work with is going up. So that's not dropping. But we do have the ability to support them. Here's some of the data. I just had Craig Harris update this, and you can see, the year 15-16 was when we did not have the program, and you can really see it did drop significantly, and we're kind of remaining stable, which is good. Here's the new issues. So this year we have a larger kindergarten class for 2019-2020, and I will say we're going to probably need 8 sections. So I know the superintendent has made a commitment to maintaining effective class sizes. At this point, with the numbers we have, to keep it around 20, we would have to have 8 sections. So that probably will happen. The importance of social emotional learning and play-based learning in kindergarten. There's always competing agendas. Right now, there's actually an initiative looking at screening students who are age 5 for dyslexia. And there are some good screening tools that we can take a look at, rapid naming and different things that we can look at. But I really think that one of the major issues that we're struggling with is for them to learn how to play still and share and take turns and be creative and learn how to wait and be in a group. I think we have to always remember how important that piece of learning is for kindergarten, and it's become pretty academic at the moment, and maybe having to revisit that piece. We're going to need an additional school psychologist at Hadley for our Learning Academy. The numbers in that program have grown, and the need for having someone there at all times who's able to meet their social emotional needs is critical, and that they cannot have added responsibilities of MCAS or providing social skills groups for general education. They really have to have their time dedicated to that population. So that's a newer issue, and that group continues to grow. There's a need for alternate project-based learning for small groups at the middle and high school. I think we're going to need a think tank to kind of look at that piece, where traditional classroom learning is not meeting their needs. It's not really a special education issue, really, either. I think what happened really is the vocational piece, where everybody moved into Common Core and college prep. We forgot that there's probably a group of kids that really still needed that piece. And so it's not really a special education issue, but I feel like it is impacting our students to a higher level. Essex Tech is a real hard school to get into now. I really feel like we're missing a group of kids that may benefit from that type of hands-on instruction, and not just kids who are not maybe doing a mixture of college prep and also doing vocational learning, but also I think our kids with anxiety really benefited from having their hands busy. If your hands are busy and you're engaged, you really don't have time to ruminate in your thoughts, and so I think it was beneficial for them too. So I think we're going to be looking at that piece. So I've got a lot of people who are interested in it. I know Colleen came from Everett, and she actually has a lot of familiarity with an alternate high school program. We're not big enough really to do something of that nature, but we can be creative. I'm confident of that. We're going to have a need for supported inclusion 5th grade, and we're going to do a co-taught model for our incoming students from the Learning Academy next year, so I'm really excited about that. This is interesting. We're going to have one less preschool classroom next year. This is one of our substantially separate classrooms. There is, and and I think the Department of Ed is aware of this, but there are students who more typically would have come to our program, and I wish they were here, but they're not. They're in actually clinic-based programs that are not schools, so they're not DESE-approved private school programs, and they're not private schools, but they're able to bill for insurance for especially ABA. And what really had happened was the autism waiver program was supposed to allow families to get supports after school and on the weekend through your insurance. I think what probably happened is that it's very hard to secure people who want to work those hours. What a lot of these providers found was they could, though, find people that wanted to work school day hours. So if you provide, I think it's up to 1 hour a month of home observation or home therapy, you can bill it through this program. So we have kids that normally would be in our preschool program, but are in these 8 to 5 programs that are not being, I don't know who's regulating them, but it's not the Department of Ed and it's not EEC.
And then they come back to public schools?
We have yet to have our first one come back, but we will. When the billing, there's only a certain age range it will go to, right? So it's just a unique situation that's happened.
So it's insurance driven?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
But I think, it's concerning to me, and
all insurances, like Mass Health too? Or
you can, yeah. So the billing can be extraordinarily high for BCBA's. So if you can get enough, I don't know how their fee structure is, but they're able to do it. Parents pay a daycare fee for it, but their kids are in these full day programs. They're not. There's no regulatory agency over them. Wow. I have talked to Russell Johnston, who's the director of special education for the state, and they are looking into it. But we're going to have one program next year.
How many students is that? Or are you allowed?
It's probably too identifying to say how many, but it's enough that we're not running a second program.
Okay.
I would need at least 3 to run that second program, and I don't. We're enough to have one. But I guess what it does show is that we are nimble and flexible, and so if we don't need that program, we're not going to run it next year.
So one less preschool classroom, is that one of the smaller classrooms?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so we're going to have one substantially separate classroom. The 3
Okay.
integrated are still running.
Okay.
Yes. There's another issue right now. I just was on a Medicaid. So the Medicaid reimbursements that we get right now go straight to the town. And I just was on a webinar, and there's some issues with billing. And again, I'm not sure where this comes from, but what they're looking for is that we're not in the business of diagnoses, right? We don't have doctors here. We're evaluating for educational disabilities, but they're actually requiring a code for billing for what the diagnosis is. And basically what their Medicaid agency was saying was that people that we hire, school psychologists, SLPs, OTs, PTs, within their private license, like ASHA or Department of Allied and Mental Health, could diagnose, right? They could, but we're not hiring them in that capacity, right? We're hiring them under IEPs. And they are also required to have a treatment plan, because this is a medical model, right? And so I have a lot of concern about this, and how do we do that, and are we doing that with fidelity? So it's something I'm looking at. I don't, again, know how this happened, right? I don't know why. We are providing services like PT, OT, and speech, but we're not diagnosing students either. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but it is a problem. So
How are you guiding their plan if you don't have a diagnosis? I don't understand.
we have educational disabilities, we use an IEP. IEP is not a medical document, right? So it's not, this is about, well, you would know, this is about health. So it's different, like that's not what we do, that's not under the Department of Ed, but we're billing.
Even for PT services, like for your physical
You
therapy?
you can look at a developmental delay. There's a developmental delay in your gross motor skills, and I can do an evaluation for that, but that doesn't say what your medical diagnosis is for that. We can do emotional disability, but we don't diagnose bipolar, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. Like, we don't do that, right?
Just looking at behaviors.
Right. So we have our educational disabilities, and so Do you want to get, that's not what we do. And I also think it can be extraordinarily problematic because a lot of the things that we do under educational disability, a lot of these children have underlying medical conditions. So I know we are an easy gateway for people to get services. That does not mean we don't do genetic testing. We don't do metabolic testing. We don't do ultrasounds if a child had a hip disorder, right? We don't do those things. Right. So I don't know how to resolve that part. It is happening now, and I'm sure, certainly we get outside reporting that might have a diagnosis in there, but it's not required in order to do an IEP. And
PTs and OTs are billing Medicaid currently.
Yes, but these are newer requirements that they're stating.
So this is reimbursements that we were getting that we may no longer get
Maybe not.
because of these.
Well,
The town gets it.
Right, the town.
Possibly, unless, because if you think about it, if that is the requirement, well, we can. Are we going to be now doing medical evaluations? I don't know. I'm assuming you don't,
Slippery
there's just,
slope.
yes, I don't know what happened. Something happened. I think it's because we are a center-based place where the kids are here, right? I think that it's, we're becoming an easy way for Department of Public Health to get information from us, like Expert, or an easy way for kids to get in and get therapy, which I understand that part, but we don't have a medical, we do have a medical doctor unlicensed, but that person isn't here evaluating students. So it's just something that.
Wouldn't you just go through their pediatrician to kind of get them to guide?
Remember, we're free and appropriate public education. So if we recommend for a medical evaluation, which we can do a psychiatric evaluation, absolutely. We pay for it. So I just think there's a lot of complications to this, and trust me, when I was on this webinar with all the people from around the state, other directors were completely saying the same thing, like how when we don't have a mandate, the other thing you think about is that's not what we're hiring people to do. We're not hiring our staff to do medical evaluations. So I don't know what happened. I just think I don't know what happened. I don't know how this occurred, but it's worrisome to me. This is super exciting. We're going to have a middle school volunteer program starting this summer for the extended school year program. After a real successful pilot last summer, we had kids work in our integrated preschool and some in our social skills groups, and the kids loved it, all of them. So
How old are the volunteers?
they're going to be middle school age. Wow. So Mary Powers and Liam Hurley are sending out a flyer shortly for the kids to have it, they'll be open, I think they're doing it in the morning in the library for anybody who's interested. They're going to have to write a paragraph about why they're interested and why they would want to work in the summer, but it'll be a volunteer program. So we're really excited about it for everybody. I think as much as our students with disabilities will be so happy to have them there, those children are just going to leave with just an incredible experience. So I'm really excited about that. And then there's our ECLC committee. We're continuing to work towards goals of creating a multi-tiered system of supports, SEL recommendation system-wide, and having cultural proficiency at the tier 1 level. It is a long process. Tomorrow we have a meeting from 8 until 11 with Judy Elliott, who's kind of the guru in MTSS, and she is going to kind of guide us through it. We do have many of these things in place already. What I think are positive in Swampscott is that we're so tiny and we can really make nimble changes to the cohort and the child that presents in front of us. Because we're so tiny, though, we end up with not sustained systems and frameworks that stay, right? And you can see why. I mean, I'm just telling you already, we're closing one of our preschool programs. That wouldn't happen in Lynn, right? They're so much bigger than we are. And so it's a positive, but it's also something I think we have to confront is, one of our challenges too. But this is pretty exciting work. We have a lot of teachers who are really involved. That's going to be the most important piece, is that everybody's involved in this piece: principals, the superintendent, our teachers, our staff, everyone. So I'm really excited about that. A lot of work though, but it's nice to be supported by the grant. And I think that was it.
That's it, huh?
That's all. Anybody have questions regarding
Second great presentation in a week.
Remember she did a red font last time? They couldn't read it.
No.
It was excellent. Thank you, Martha.
Wow,
I
Martha,
think
thank you.
yeah.
Big job.
Exciting job.
Remember last time you did it
Okay. So we're gonna, we're gonna skip into G, the 2019-2020 school calendar that the superintendent presented the last time. Needs a vote today, assuming that everybody has reviewed it. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second? Anybody want to discuss, have any questions? I'm not sure I could answer them, or,
No, I looked at it.
okay, so, all in favor? Motion is unanimous, or the vote is unanimous. We will now move into the SBC meeting update, Ms. Wright.
We had a meeting this past week with, and our guest speaker was our town, Mr. Mendez, our assistant town administrator, and
Treasurer.
our town
Accountant.
Treasurer.
treasurer. I want to call him accountant, but he's not. He's the treasurer. And he spoke to us about how we spend the feasibility study money and how much lead time he needs to bond different amounts of money and stuff. So that was important information for us, because we are looking now, we have a committee looking at hiring an owner's project manager. So that committee has met at least once to sort of start crafting our request for services. So our deadline, we think we're gonna ask the MSBA by July 15th to approve someone. So hopefully all the deadlines between now and then get met, and we have some candidates, and we have some interviews, and we go to the MSBA with a person. It's a really important decision, because this person is going to be the person that sort of helps guide the project and helps us select a design team and so forth and so on. So that work is being done, and in the meantime, the communications subcommittee captured some emails from people who went to the idea exchange. There's also a tab on the website that you can click if you want to just get building committee updates. So they sent out their first communication this week, just sort of thanking people for going to the idea exchange and directing them to the website to see the latest minutes and some information like that. And then we have a tour subcommittee that so far we've been to 7 or 8 different schools around our area. Kind of looked at, buildings that are going to be similar configurations or sizes or have some sort of features that we might be interested in. So that's been really fun to look at other buildings and listen to principals tell us what they wish they did differently or what they love about their buildings. It's been really interesting. And a couple of us are going to try to get down to a school in Groton, Connecticut that has this marine science center in it that sounded really cool. So hopefully we'll get there by the end of the month. And then hopefully all that data will help us craft a better request for service, so we can really ask for the people to be on our team who are going to meet our needs best.
I'm pretty thorough too. I went down to Milford, and I was with Christine Colella, but Chief Breen came too, and he's on the roof because he wanted to look at the. He's like,
get me up
I wasn't
there.
doing that part, but I will say people are really thorough about what they want to see in the buildings, and it's really interesting. What they do say, here's the things that worked and here's the things that didn't, and it was interesting to hear the principal say, here's something we thought would really be great, and nobody's using it. And so we're so lucky that we're able to get their feedback about something.
Yeah, we
that-
heard about the hand sanitizer, the
Campbell.
dryers.
Yes, they're too loud.
We've been in schools and been in classrooms, and teachers will just jump up
they
and
can't
tell
wait to
us
tell
what they
you.
love or what they hate. It's really funny. So it's not just the principals or sometimes the facilities people taking us around. Sometimes just everyone kind of pipes in and you know, is so happy about this in their classroom and can't stand this. It's really,
I know they made these breakout classrooms in the Milford School, right? But then what they didn't do was, so the classrooms here, they'd have to walk out their classroom door, and then the door into the breakout session was here. She's like, I can't do it because there's only one of me. If the door had been in the classroom, I could have done it, and so now they've become offices. Like, everybody's got desks.
Like, how nice would it be if that were our problem?
Right.
And.
This is really
like,
great, though.
That we don't, you know, our
Yeah, because-
teachers, think about what our teachers are, you know, are not complaining about versus, you know, these small things. It's like.
the complaints, like, you can't even believe,
It's
like, we should have those problems.
yeah, yeah.
But it's been
Super
really.
exciting, though, to
it's
see
been-
what could happen.
And
Yeah.
to get to really interesting to see buildings, and then, you know, I know, you know, we talk about an elementary school, and we keep saying, you know, big elementary school, and it'll be big, it'll, if we do K through 4, it will be 900 students. It's a very large school, but you can attest, you just went to Milford, and that was a 3 through 5 with 1,000 students, and I've been there when kids are in the class, you could hear a pin drop. I mean, they have it in a way that the way the traffic flows, the kids don't even pass each other in the hall practically because of the different stairways they use. And then they have these pods, they have 7 classrooms they have 15 classrooms. They have so many 15 they have 15 classrooms a grade, right? But they have these pods of like 5, 5, and 5, right? And each pod has these
common areas.
So they're like little separate schools.
Now, they're all like these little these little family pods of 5, right? And then there's opportunities for everyone to sort of, from this pod and this pod, to share some space in the hall at different times, but on purpose, not like we have desks in the hall, but like actually like with like, you know, sinks and work and big tables and work areas, right? And teachers have all these glass windows so they can actually see kids out in the hall working. Like, you know, it's just like, it's so purposeful, but really flexible space. And you think like, oh my God, 900 elementary school kids, that's crazy. But then you go to these schools where it's been thoughtfully designed that
And it's not
it's
overwhelming.
Yeah, and then you see the safety and security in some of these
Right.
buildings, like the way you walk into vestibules and you can't even get in the building without going through the office first, you know, and how the sight lines everywhere are just like unbelievable.
Right,
just
and the
like-
classrooms are like away from that.
Yeah, the
you know
classrooms
what I
are
mean?
away from the main entrances, and a lot of schools have main entrances that you can close off all the, sort of like the high school is, where you can just access the cafeteria, the gym, and the auditorium, like community
Like
space.
public
but
space,
Without
yeah.
going to classrooms. Most of these schools are built that way too, so that it can be opened all weekend long for sports and.
That's an incredible playground, too, I will say.
There's so many great
Playground is just
playgrounds, there's so many neat things. And really, we'll see a lot more once we start thinking about hiring an architect and design firm. You know, part of that is like looking at what other things that those people have built, and they'll take us to schools and show us even more stuff.
Yeah.
But for now, we've been to schools that have been designed by 5 or 6 architectural teams, different OPMs, different ways of funding them. It's sort of been we've done a lot of legwork. So.
Can I just ask, is there any plans for showing any of this at town meeting?
Yeah, we've been talking about having a presentation. I mean, I still see people saying like, why do we even need a new school? So maybe discuss what the problem is with Hadley in particular, but really all 3 of our elementary schools, and why we don't really truly we do not have neighborhood schools right now, and what's wrong with how we're educating. What's not working about how we're educating our elementary school kids right now. So that will be presented. And then I think it's going to be important to sort of show, you know, for example, we have 3 elementary schools, only one of which has a cafeteria space, right? Everyone else has a, you know, gymatorium, where the gym and the cafeterias and the auditorium in some cases are all one room.
And are we counting Hadley as the cafeteria?
Well, I know, it's.
I was gonna
Which
say.
is the 3 basement.
It's a
Right.
stretch, but now you go into, I mean, what's standard in elementary schools? I mean, all 3 of our gyms could fit in a standard elementary school's gym.
And there isn't food all over the floor, because a
there's
bunch
not
of kids
food,
just
and
came
you
out of
actually get
lunch.
to use a gym floor, not a linoleum floor like in Stanley,
Yeah.
where the floor isn't even a gym floor.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Right,
this discussion, that's what I'm asking, like, is there gonna be some sort of, or could there be some sort of imagery of, you know, we already did it, those videos that you
Yeah, so
already have of the
we're trying to
state of
figure
the
out.
current conditions, and then look at all the great things you've seen, and
But
what the
are
standards
you
are.
finding that the people who are unaware of the necessity to replace Hadley are town meeting members?
Or just
Or-
other people.
I don't know who they all are, but I think that we will produce some sort of movie.
Yeah.
And maybe, like, town meeting doesn't wanna watch a 20-minute, feature film or anything, right? They
Well,
want,
they're only gonna give you 6 minutes
they're
or
only gonna
something
give us,
anyway.
right? So we're gonna do something that hits the highlights, and maybe there's a longer version that goes on our website or
Yeah.
something.
Right,
But
right.
we are gonna take the time to say, like, why we need a new school, what our educational vision is for now into the next 100 years, because that's how the
that's how
town
long
likes
they
to
last.
build.
Yeah.
And then sort of go through what we could have.
And
I don't know.
I think people, I know,
Right.
because I'm a director of student services, that I'm concerned about the accessibility piece, but I found at the building exchange that people
No, they
did
don't
not,
know.
they did not know that. They didn't understand that. They forget that, a child breaks their leg, that means they cannot go to Hadley.
But
Or
not-
you have a parent who can't access the building, or a teacher who maybe could get back into their classroom after surgery more quickly, but they can't because we have no elevator and I can't get them into the building.
Right.
Like, those are real issues that we've actually faced in those buildings.
And I know we've spent a lot of money sort of retrofitting Clark with a lift and then wider doorways and bigger bathrooms and a ramp onto the stage, but it's still not 100% accessible.
No.
And that's our new school.
And that's our new school.
Why should you have to move to Clark just to accept, like, to be
Yeah.
accessible? for
Right,
that?
I'm just, yeah, secure, yeah, there's, yes, anyway, there will be something at town meeting. That's my project for next week, is to start drafting something and then having our committee look at it. Yeah.
The school building
The school
committee,
building,
not this committee.
sorry, not this
Yeah.
committee, our school building committee is sort of
Yeah.
Produce
working on it.
something, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's coming. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Only thing to add is we have a tri-chair meeting on Friday, as I think everybody was there on. At
Monday
the-
night?
On Monday night at the budget presentation to the selectmen. Sounds like Tim Dorsey's gonna have a bunch of requests for us, which will be nice. So I'll be sure to report back. We'll move right into the consent agenda since it's almost 9:30. Designed to expedite the handling of routine and miscellaneous business of the district, the school committee can adopt the entire consent agenda with one motion. At the request of any committee member, any items could be removed from the consent agenda, placed on the regular agenda for discussion. Tonight, we have 4 things. Our regular session minutes from March 27th. We have 2 field trips, one, both for the 2020, so well planned out. One field trip to Puerto Rico with Ms. Diaz and Ms. Massanari Sapp, and a field trip to Spain and France. I'm not sure if it's Mr. or Mrs. Albert
It's
and
both.
Beralt.
Yes, both of them.
And then warrant number 1940, which I have here still for signatures. So I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Can I just ask a question?
Hold on, let's just get the motion on.
I'll second.
Okay, and then let's open for discussion.
Was the France field trip last year, did they incur some problems?
That was
That was Nicaragua.
Yeah, it was Nicaragua where
Okay.
they had to come home a day early, right?
And if I recall, like, obviously, everybody was safe, we knew that, but that the monies were recovered from the tour agency,
Okay.
that we didn't eat the bill for that.
I had Nicaragua, but it's past my bedtime.
Yeah, right. These look like great trips. Yeah,
So,
Spain and France one.
so all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. And now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Second?
All in favor? We are adjourned.